So for this technical session, we have the panel just set up. It's chaired by Dr. N. Ramachandran, retired Indian Administrative Service Officer and former Urban Development Secretary, Government of India. The panel also includes the Commissioner of the City of Panaji, the capital city of Goa, Mr. Sanjit Rodrigues, Dr. Mukesh, Kanaskar, Deputy Director General of All India Institute of Local Self-Government, Mr. Kalanidhi Devkota, Executive Director of MuAN Nepal. It's also being graced by Mr. Gino Secretary General of ICLEI, Local Governance for Sustainability, and Mr. Rodrigues, Program Director, WeGO. It's over to the session chair, Dr. N. Ramachandran.
Thank you. We are all aware that urbanization is a defining phenomenon of this century, and the developing world is the epicenter of this democratic transformation. Urbanization in Asia involves over 45 million people being added to the population of cities every year. If each day little over 120,000 people are to be added to the population of Asian cities, it would require construction of more than 20,000 new buildings, 250 kilometers of new roads, and additional infrastructure to supply more than 6 megaliters of potable water. So, in line with the SDG 11, Asia's future in urban is in developing sustainable cities. So, what are the challenges for urban governance in Asia? One is how to accommodate rapidly increasing populations while facilitating improvements in the welfare of the city residents. Another is how to effectively manage the envelope of rural areas on the rapidly expanding periphery of cities. Yet another factor is for improvements in urban welfare to be sustainable, how to achieve them in a way that recognizes the interdependence of social, economic and environmental systems, avoiding damaging shocks, allowing for an acceptable level of equity between the city's inhabitants and providing a stable platform for the well-being of future generations. Also, significant changes in the way cities are governed and developed would be a requirement. There are imbalances between demand and supply in the provision of infrastructure and services necessary for sustainable urban development. Can we have a new urban governance system in which cities themselves will be actively guiding urban development and the provision of infrastructure and services rather than just respond to problems and shortfalls? There is need to have capacity building and strengthening of city governments and systems. A challenge for governments in Asia is to develop consistent, effective policy framework for urban development within governments and across the different tiers of government. So some of the priority actions required are policies for land markets and policies to encourage improved local government performance need to be prioritized. Decentralization is another subject being pursued. The issue here seems to be lack of clarity and confidence in local authorities as to their roles and power under decentralization. The fact in relatively few local governments seem to understand or utilize the opportunities that decentralization provides them. Local leadership plays a critical role in identifying issues, engaging the community, defining priorities for action, approaches and solutions, and in mobilizing resources to achieve outcomes. In fact, good leadership can substitute for weak institutional capacity to a certain extent. Developing sustainable cities relies substantially on developing processes at the local level for defining and fulfilling local needs. So here stakeholder participation and the building of networks and partnerships involving all branches of civil society such as government and government agencies, communities, non-government and local community organizations and private sector organizations become important. The question is how committed we are to achieve it. Most countries in Asia have put considerable resources into economic and spatial planning processes at the regional and city levels. But plans have failed for various reasons. Neither the resources nor the mechanisms have been in position for proper implementation. There have been weak linkages between planning and budgeting. Another relevant factor is that local financial sustainability and political autonomy can achieve only if the costs of providing infrastructural services are paid for by users either directly through tariffs and user charges or indirectly through local taxes. But there remains the fact that local financial sustainability is poorly developed in the region's countries. Local institutions are generally reliant on revenue sharing arrangements with the state or federal governments for a major part of their revenues. There is little alignment between local authority functions and revenue raising capacity and little incentive to fully exploit the local tax base or user charges. Another challenge facing the sustainable development of cities in Asia is the inadequacy of financial management. In this context, it needs to be mentioned that the importance of establishing ratings for all the cities has not been adequately recognized. What are the perspectives on urban sustainability? It is sometimes seen as an environment and development issue. Sometimes protection of culture and heritage values are emphasized. Some others see it as a social issue with aspects of equity, fairness and responsibility in meeting the needs of future generations. Still others focus on resource use and the better leveraging of resources. But it is clear that sustainability is concerned with change, managing risks, tensions, shocks, disruption and other forces that threaten to undermine life systems. It's also about generating change and building of change to renew systems and improve people's welfare. The challenges of creating sustainable futures for Asian cities is how to promote a culture of city building that embraces change. In short, the challenge of urbanization and sustainability in Asian cities is huge. It involves accommodating the needs for housing, infrastructure and employment for the 1.1 billion people expected to be added to the cities of 2030. Thank you for this initial opportunity of introducing the subject. Now we have an eminent panel seated here. I will listen to their presentations one by one. Thank you.
That was Dr. M. Ramachandran, retired IAS, former Urban Development Secretary, Government of India. It's over to Dr. Ramachandran to chair and moderate discussion. There are mics, cordless mics as well for the benefit of the panel members. Ladies and gentlemen, it's technical session 1 on sustainable cities. It's over to the chair, Dr. M. Ramachandran.
Thank you. Our first speaker today is Mr. Gino, Secretary General. I hope I pronounced it right. He has worked for EQUI-T for 20 years. In his former positions as Regional Director for Europe and Deputy Secretary General, and now as Secretary General since 2013. He has consistently worked towards ensuring EQUI-T performs as a responsible, forward-looking, not-for-profit, local and regional government organization serving its members worldwide. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, for the very kind introduction. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My presentation here today, and particularly the organizers, asked me to provide a bit of an overview on global sustainability. And as ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, working with 1,750 cities around the world on the issues of sustainability and implementing sustainability strategies, I think we have a quite fair, good idea and overview of the state of sustainability worldwide. And unfortunately, the state of sustainability is not very good. There are several drivers that are taking place in parallel, several trends that are taking place in parallel. And I will try to go through these rapidly and then provide some solutions that we think as ICLEI we together need to work towards. Firstly, we have indeed a factor that is undeniable, namely that our cities themselves are changing. We are experiencing a very rapid urbanization. We are experiencing a world population growth as well. The population living in urban areas is projected to expand by 2.6 billion people, growing from 3.6 to 6.3 billion by 2050. So what it actually means is that we are going to double the urban citizens within the next 30 years. And that actually has immediate consequences because all of these people in urban areas are requested to have access to water, to sanitation, obviously employment, education, energy, etc. So that will definitely have an impact on the way of how our urban areas are actually managed today and how we will be managed them and need to manage them in the future. Many of our regions in the world today are already predominantly urbanized. This is particularly the case in Europe, Latin America, and Northern America. But the urbanization is, of course, rapidly taking place here in Asia, particularly in South Asia. A second element, next slide, please. Second element is that that our planet itself is also changing. We are expecting that if we continue the work as usual, business as usual, we will be experiencing an increase in global temperature by 4 degrees until 2100. The latest reports that have been presented to the nations by the IPCC, the International Panel for Climate Change, suggests that we will be leading towards a very rapid global warming, which is almost a global heating, if one may say. And they are concerned about the fact that the Paris Agreement targets that have been negotiated upon and agreed upon by nations are actually not sufficient. The 2 degrees target is not sufficient. We definitely need to achieve 1.5 degrees. But we are today already at 1.2 degrees Celsius increase. So there is a huge dilemma in between what we are politically undertaking, what we are trying to do, and actually what we need to do. In terms of biodiversity, we have never seen such a rapid loss of species than we are seeing today. Between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than the natural extinction rate. And the IPBES, the International Panel for Biodiversity, in their report, which was presented here in India last year, speaks of more than 1 million species are threatened by extinction. Our arable land is being lost at 30 to 35 times the historical rate, and this element, combined with our rapid urbanization and population growth, as well as with our aging societies, actually means that if we continue to work, live, and manage ourselves as it is today, we actually need resources of yet one other planet. So we are indeed in a climate emergency, in a biodiversity emergency, and very soon in an urban emergency. Next slide, please. Our cities and our urban areas are actually both at risk. They are a risk in themselves, and they are a risk of themselves. And that, I think, is something that leaders around the world that we are working with are starting to see. So there is a change in perspectives, a change in understanding of the magnitude of the issues that we are dealing with. Now, all that comes very much on local leaders in particular. Next slide, please. So whilst the state of our human and ecological well-being is becoming increasingly connected to the state of our cities and our urban areas, our national governments are moving too slowly. Many of the impacts of climate change and population growth are hitting most at the local level. We are seeing this in forms of droughts, declining crops and fishing, cyclones, flash flooding, sea level rise, and landslides. So, all of this points to the critical role of cities and local authorities to become the stewards of our planet. We have to transform how we view our role and do businesses with one another. Next slide, please. A strong leadership of both the business sector as well as our local communities to transition to renewable energy and to reduce our energy sources, helping our communities to generate strategies to respond to climate change risks are going to be essential. Many of the cities around the world are actually already undertaking climate emergency planning and management models. So from an ICLEI perspective, what we think, if maybe 30 years ago we would consider sustainable development as the interface between economy, social and environment, we think today this is too much of a simplified way of looking at the needs of sustainable development. We think that sustainable development can only be achieved if we have a development that is based on low emissions, that is a development that is resilient, a development that is using as few resources as possible and reuses these, so it becomes a circular development. A development that uses our nature and uses nature-based solutions for our own community development. And finally, of course, that sustainable development must be primarily a people-centered and equitable development. So in all of these areas, what we try to do is to assist the cities that we are working with via a number of programs and projects, and currently we have around 200 programs and projects going on around the world, many of these also in South Asia, and I was actually very pleased yesterday to be informed of the progress we are making with some of the projects we are actually undertaking here with the leadership of the city of Panaji, and I'm very pleased, Commissioner, that you are here with us as well, where we are working, for example, here in Panaji on the issues of transportation of goods and services, as well as the issues of biodiversity. So, ladies and gentlemen, in order to come to a conclusion, we think that sustainable development is the only way out for us to not only safeguard our local communities, but globally to safeguard our planet. And this is something that can only be done in collaboration and at multi-level. We need national governments to put on the right frameworks, the right financial incentives, the good regulatory frameworks as well. whilst providing autonomy and decentralized powers to local governments to actually understand the work that is required to do on the ground. We hope that as many cities as possible, as I said, we are working with 1,700, there are more than 100,000 cities and municipalities around the world, that they all engage very rapidly in the issues of sustainability, as I said, around a development that is low emission based, resilient, people-centered and equitable, circular, and that uses nature for bring us further. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gino, for emphasizing the framework required. Our next speaker is Mr. Sanjit, Rodrigues, Municipal Commissioner of the City of Panaji, currently serving as a Municipal Commissioner. He has taken various initiatives in transforming Panaji into a smarter, cleaner and more attractive city for both its residents and visitors. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. My fellow panelists, respected mayors from various cities participating, senior officials of city governments across Southeast Asia, organizers, friends. It's a moment of pride for us to host such a large congregation of city governors and officials here in Panji. Sustainability is the key word today. And every single development, every single process, every single movement made in a city is today talked in terms of sustainability. Let me give you a perspective of how we have moved and how we have worked in our city. As Gino said, rapid urbanization is the name of the game. And in Goa, we have become closely urban to an effect where rural area is shrinking by the day. And one of the important aspects to tackle rapid urbanization is to connect at the lowest level in the city, in that urban area. And that connect can be built definitely by one single aspect of a committed, of a continuous, and of a very informed leadership. And I think this leadership is essential in every smallest part of the city. We have been fortunate in the city to have an elected body who would connect to this thought, who would connect to the lowest common denominator of citizenry in and around city and make this change happen. We have to believe in this power and this power of one. And this is the key of what Panji thinks of itself. Each one has to make and be the change. And this change can come if the thought process flows from the leadership to the executive to the people. And the effort made in Panji to connect to the people, to connect to the aspirations of the people is strong, and that has made Panji make giant strides in sustainability. We are one of the first cities in the country to have and to be committed to be a city without a landfill for waste. A city where every fourth person is a visitor or a tourist, where the footprint of tourism is large enough which cannot be described. Everything puts pressure on the city. How do we talk sustainability in such a scenario? How do we assess this problem in such a scenario? Today the city has committed itself to be landfill free. Today the city has committed itself to be a bin free city. So today a city and its citizenry has committed itself to source, segregate to such a level that we can recycle 97% of our waste. This is the commitment of the polity. This is the commitment of its leadership. This is the commitment of its people. We talk about sustainability, we have to walk the talk. Lots of presentations, lots of slides, lots of numbers, lots of percentages are going around the world. What is the ground level effect of these talks, of these presentations, of these matters which we discuss in roundtables and conferences like this? Have we shown this change on ground zero? That's the topic we have to be inclined to. And in Panji, that is what we are talking about. What change can we make on ground? If it is waste, we have talked about a biodiversity plan for the city. We are one of the first cities to have a comprehensive people's register for biodiversity. And yesterday, in the hands of Gino and the leadership of the city, we have released a properly documented map which shows the biodiversity in an area. In an area where we are proud of our green cover. In an area we are proud of our animal residents as well, and on equal footing of we humans who talk about sustainability. This is the commitment the city has to make. This is the change we want to see, and this is the change we stand for here in the city. A lot more things need to be done. We have to have financial sustainability too. That is one which requires great debate, deliberation, and thought-provoking discussion. Each city, how we make ourselves sustainable financially, how we make ourselves work towards every penny which we get, and how we spend this money in our coffers. We need to spend in such a manner that the benefit of it goes to the lowest denominator, goes to the sustainable environment which we are looking for. Another aspect which the city would look for is education. And we have to come with a change of mindset. We have to come with a change of attitude. We have to come with a change of our aptitude. We have to come with a change of how we think, how we move. This change the city has decided would come through its younger residents. And that is the target audience we talk to. Students who enter our schools, who enter the portals of our educational institutions, who are the future, who are what change would be. And we have programs, we have assessments which go on. And if we work with organizations like this, it is to target the young citizenry of the city. And that has brought about sustainable change in our city. We talk to young people in all our schools, from standard 1 to standard 5. These are the people who have grown, and we have consistently talked for years together. And these are the people who would bring this change in the city. These are the people who would talk sustainability not as a fashion buzzword, but with a word, with a deep meaning in their lives. And as the session progresses, and as all elected people and the city governments are here, it is our appeal. It is our prayer that we talk sustainability not just at the conference and get over, but get to brass tacks and work for sustainability in a committed manner so that the change we wish and the change we want to see is the change we would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodrigues. Our next speaker is Kanaskar, Devkota Executive Director, MuAN, that is Municipal Association of Nepal. He was with the association between 2004 and 6 and rejoined in November 2008 as its Executive Director. His work expertise spans from local governments, poverty reduction, urban resource mobilization, public policy and management. He has also coordinated the policy and facilitated policy review teams of all 7 provincial committees of mayors, deputy mayors to ensure smooth implementation of the 22 exclusive rights of local governments during the transition period into a federal structure of governance in Nepal. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Very good afternoon. I'm really happy to be on such an august gathering. Today I'm really enthusiastic to have a discourse with a very important delegation from different parts of the world, particularly from the South Asian country, also from European country. Please forget about the presentation today. Let's do some discourse. I would like to ask to stick to the first slide. Yes, this slide. I now remember I traveled back in time and reminisce the time when I got an invitation from ADB a few years back asking for a presentation on climate change and energy. And the condition was they would sponsor and provide every single thing I needed to participate in the event. The condition was that I couldn't make a PowerPoint presentation. They wanted me to speak. The reason they gave was very interesting, that the live connection between the audience and the presenter somehow distorted because of everybody's focus to the silver screen, the screen. That's why they wanted to do the kind of direct discourse and interaction. And I am very much, when I'm lazy to make a presentation, I tend to repeat this. Having said this, not letting any time be wasted because time is so limited. The point that I like to make today here is that how can we make a difference if we do partnership, if we unite? Because we know about theory, we know what is sustainable city, but we still, particularly this part of the world, is struggling to ensure that we have a livable city, let alone smart city or any kind of city that we consider is the perfect place to live in. So what are the things, what are the components, why people fall down on the job? A lot of reports are being made. What is the thing? So the ideal scenario that I would like to show you in the first slide of my presentation. This is a watch, and we all have different types of governance system in the country. Some are doing federal system, some have unitary system, some have kings. And many systems are doing well, even if they are implementing different types of governance system. However, the common challenges across the world, the local government are facing are similar. And that's why perhaps we are here. Ideally, the local government should move like a minute hand in a watch. When it fulfills the circle, then the minute hand, and similarly the hour. But what is happening in most of our country is the federal or provincial governments are considered to be the much more important, and they pretend to be closer to the people. Whereas the modern governance system, and ideally the governance system, says that the closest to the people is the local government. And we all are struggling that. And what is hindering? What are the challenges? That is our major concern now. And even if we secure 22 exclusive rights in the Constitution of Nepal, we promulgated our Constitution recently, a few years ago I mean, and we have secured 22 absolute rights that we did not have, and because of the association, like I'm representing now, the Municipal Association of Nepal and the Association of the Rural Municipalities, we together did a rigorous exercise, fought against the government and the system, and we secured this. And now we are still struggling to implement those. Because still the fight is on. Because the mentality, the centralized mentality, the bureaucracy, and even the leadership is very difficult to change. We are happy that we can tell throughout the world. I mean, I get invitation. My president, leadership, all mayors, deputy mayors are getting invitations from different parts of the world. How did you secure this? How you made possible that more than 90% deputy mayors are women now? This is very good to look at. But when it comes to the implementation, we are still facing the challenge. So I'm really honestly admitting this fact that it is not sufficient unless and until we have capacity and the trust from the central and provincial government, and the most important thing is the resources. Because the tax that people are paying against the service delivery is the most important challenge in order to establish the fact that local governments can cater better needs of the taxpayers. So, in my first 5-6 slides, I've tried to explain how important Municipal Association of Nepal has been in the whole governance structure and system, how we are advocating and securing or safeguarding the rights and responsibility of the local government. So I would like to skip those first 5-6 slides. Please help me. Can you go ahead? So, yeah. Okay. So we are partnering with all local government associations across the world. You can see on this map that there is Federation of Canadian Municipalities. It's a very developed country, but it's still struggling and fighting against its federal government. Even in the United States of America, they have International City County Management Association. VNG International Netherlands. Germany has its local government association. So what are they doing? And how they are supporting their members, how they are strengthening their local governments has become a very good learning for us. Actually, what I'm trying to say is that our challenges is similar. And unless and until we secure firstly the trust from the government that yes, local governments can better serve to the people. Local governments understand the real need of the people. They can do the need assessment. So it is not possible for us to really exercise our responsibilities. And how we gain that trust, how we secure that trust is a matter of, our concern. And that's why perhaps we need to discuss and, we can collaborate. I think there is some technical problems. It's okay. Now let's come to our today's discussion point, sustainable cities. We all are facing similar challenges, be it disaster mitigation, preparedness, risk, climate change, man-made or like human-induced disaster, or climate, or kind of pandemic like what we call nowadays coronavirus and all these things. So the most important, everybody talks about mitigation and response, but we have less discussed about the preparedness. For example, how many local governments that we are representing from are now doing the awareness program to be prepared for, like, to be safe, to make our city safe from coronavirus, for example. The only government is taking initiative. Government we consider federal government. Very less provincial government. Too few, handful of local governments are raising awareness. Only yesterday I saw International City County Management Association has released one awareness, 8 points awareness, 1 seat program, that how to make our citizens safe. How can we make awareness? So there are so many things, because if we consider ourselves as one of the tiers of the government, we have to be responsible for so many things that is directly related with the people. So how can we collaborate? So on this outset, like against this backdrop, what point I'm trying to make is that, especially in the South Asian countries, we are facing similar challenges. So our exchange of knowledge, our collaborative efforts can make a lot of changes. We can work together for mobility, for the accessibility. We can work together for the better transportation system. We can work together for reducing the impact of the climate change or disaster. So we have, in the past, I myself have coordinated one project towards zero waste in South Asia that was focused in 7 South Asian cities. We introduced the zero waste system, zero waste concept in the municipalities. Like the most important factor was, what we introduced was the segregation at source. Although the zero waste is a kind of utopian concept, we can never achieve that. But towards zero, that's something that we can work on. So similarly, now we are working on fecal sludge management in 5 municipalities in Nepal and 5 municipalities in Bangladesh. So the learning can be treasured and can be disseminated across the municipality and across the region, so that we can respond to possible challenges. So these are something that we can do collectively, and associations like MuAN and association of AIILSG, there are Sri Lankan association, Maldives, there are so many associations. We can work together and we can have a pool of experts, for example. I always remember, because I graduated from one of the European countries, in the VNC International Association of Netherlands, they have one pool of experts. So suppose a particular municipality needs or are facing some kind of challenge, they write to them. Within 24 hours, the association responds to their needs. So that kind of association we are trying to build. So together we can do more. I'm very happy to respond to some questions if there is any. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kalanidhi Devkota. Our next speaker is Mr. Albert Graves, Program Director at WeGO, the world's Smart Sustainable Cities Organization, in its secretariat in Seoul, Korea. Prior to this organization, he was Deputy Director at Korea's Local Government Officials Development Institute, and before that led the outreach team at the Green Climate Fund.
Namaskar. Sir, I will operate. I will check. So today's session is on the theme of sustainability. I'm here representing what's called the World Smart Sustainable Cities Organization, WeGO, in case you haven't heard of us. And I will be talking a little bit about us and what we do. It doesn't take much explanation. This is something everybody already knows, but smart cities are changing the world. There are many ways in which we can be smarter and more sustainable, and this is just some of the ways in which this can be done in different sectors and how citizens' lives can be improved in many different ways. The problem, though, is that it's not very easy to build smart cities, and probably you all know this very well because you are many city leaders among the audience, and you are trying to do the same thing. There are obviously political issues. Leadership can either be weak or it doesn't stay in place for long enough to make a sustainable change. Funding is always a big issue, and so on and so forth. These are things that we've not just faced in the last year or even decade, but this is something that has been around for the beginning of time. So what we need is a personalized approach because there is no one-size-fits-all solution. That sounds very cliche, I'm sure we've heard it many times, but it's true. Citizen centricity, as many colleagues have been saying, is very important. It is the baseline for any smart city. A smart city is a happy city for smart people, as we like to say at WeGO. Technology is one key enabler, but it is not by any means a prerequisite for a smart city. So whenever we talk about smart cities, at least for WeGO, we're talking about happy cities and cities that are sustainable, meaning that happiness lasts through the generations, so to children and to children's children. And these are just some of the ways in which we can achieve that. So we obviously should be looking for tech solutions. There are very many young innovators nowadays that are coming up with solutions to our public administration that public administrators are not aware of. So it's very important to establish these PPPs and to understand what innovations are out there that we can take advantage of to serve our people better. So our vision is smart, sustainable cities for all. Sustainable is kind of actually not even necessary to say because if you want to be smart, you obviously have to be sustainable. And our mission is to promote the facilitation of transforming cities into smart cities. And so we do that by serving as a platform, which I'll talk about over the next couple of slides. But SDG 11 is obviously the one that we work with because we are working with cities. We are based in Seoul, that's where our secretariat is. We were established by 50 different founding member cities in 2010. Since then, we've expanded to be a membership of around 200 different local governments, but also corporations and institutions that have the solutions and that are supporting cities. And we have a number of other cities that are working with us in our organization. So as I said, the majority of our network is composed of local governments. These are the ones that we primarily serve, but we also have a number of very interesting and innovative corporations that we help matchmake to our local government members who give us their needs, and then we identify the solutions for them. We also work with a number of partners, both in national partners as well as regional partners in the EU as well as across Asia. UCLG ASPRAC is one of our close partners, and we are also talking with the Smart Cities Mission in India and others here. This is just a kind of snapshot of some of the solutions that cities in our network, at least in Asia Pacific, have come up with. Seoul, being our president city, obviously is one of the leaders in smart city development in terms of technology. So they've come up with a lot of different interesting solutions. An owl bus that uses a PPP with the telecommunication company to find out where people are at what times of day, and then they can find out where all the commercial activity is going on, so that they developed a bus system that runs after hours. The public transportation finishes around midnight and starts again in the early hours of the morning. But obviously there are people who need to get around the city after those hours, and this is one of those services that help citizens. Also things like voting. So if cities have an issue with knowing what it is that their citizens want from them, this is an app where Seoul gives out questions to the public, and the public can weigh in on what they think about different issues. And this is very much important in helping inform governments what they need to do. We have many other different cities, many other examples that you can read about on our site. I won't go into them all. We do many different things, training programs, capacity building programs for city officials. So all of the city officials that are members of our network get access to these. So we have different programs in Korea as well as other countries around the world. where the city officials can go and learn about their best practice in smart city development in different themes every year. And we sponsor these. We also do project implementation. So a lot of cities here in the audience, I'm sure, are working on many different projects in their cities. We help with this. We do the funding. We fund ourselves, but we also help find funding partners through development aid agencies. We work with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, as well as others. In Korea, EQUI-T is the development aid agency there. We work with these partners to help bring the interest to your city's projects. And so we are working with what's called a Smart City Driver. This is a very large scale project of ours where we want to collect the needs of our members, not only our members but also other cities, and then help find them the solutions that they need, and then also the partners that they need to fund these projects as well as to carry them out. We have supported around 15 cities around the world since 2010. These are just some of the most recent ones. Last year was in Kampala, Uganda, as well as Bharatpur, Nepal. We did feasibility studies there to look at smart parking systems. So at the end of these feasibility studies, they end up with a pilot project, and that one is ongoing right now. But you can see a list of all kinds of different sectors and smart city areas that we've helped fund in different cities. And actually for this year, the feasibility study call for applications is open right now. So if your cities are interested in getting funding for a certain project, then please contact us because the window is still open. And that funding is around $100,000, by the way. So very impactful. The majority of our network is in the developing South. We have a lot of members in LDCs, and SIDs. So across South and Southeast Asia, actually this is the largest region for our members. And they are by no means, by being in the developing South, incapable. You can see a lot of examples here in which cities are across the region are finding innovative ways to apply technology to make smarter and more sustainable cities. We help them by understanding what their needs are in different sectors, and then also finding them with the right solutions based on their case. There are actually 20,000 cities around the world that are pursuing to be smarter and more sustainable. You can see this in national networks like Smart Cities Mission in India, and also 500 different smart cities in China that are being built right now, but also in regional networks. ASEAN has the ASEAN Smart Cities Network, which is 26 different pilot cities, including the capitals of all of the 10 ASEAN nations. WeGO is partnering with them to help find them the right partners also, and we've also organized a mayoral conference for them, where we bring in the governors and mayors from that region and get them involved directly. Sometimes these networks, they are too much on the national level. So you have people from ministries doing all of the work for the cities, and the cities themselves don't have that much involvement. So this is one case where decentralization is obviously very important and something that WeGO steps in to help with. And so we bring in the smart city officers and also the leaders, and then we also sit them at round tables with the experts from a lot of different areas, including the financing partners, and then get them into discussions about how they can improve smart city action plans, as well as to get them off the ground. So thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward to any questions you have after the session.
Thank you, Mr. Robert Prince. And our final speaker for this session is Dr. Mukesh Kanaskar, Director General at the Center of EQUI-T at the Honorable Institute of Local Self-Government. He has diverse experience of 30 years from grassroots field actions to policy facilitation. He is responsible for AIILSG's activities related to poverty alleviation, equity and inclusion issues, research and knowledge management. Over to you.
Honorable Chair, dignitaries on dais, and esteemed delegates. I rather build on two very important points made. The Honorable Chief Minister of Goa mentioned about inclusive cities. So We talk about all the smart and sustainable cities, but unless they are inclusive, and going beyond jargon of inclusiveness is very crucial. Honorable Commissioner talked about grassroots field action, so otherwise it just remains a theoretical jargon. So practically we'll be talking about those field actions on behalf of AIILSG. It's very crucial that these field actions addressing the concerns of the disadvantaged populations and developing social innovations on that front is very crucial. So we'll be speaking of real life, real people, real issues, and very importantly real solutions as well. Next please. Again, as I said, this is not a theoretical proposition. This is based on very concrete grassroots field actions of AIILSG, whereby it has directly benefited around 7 lakh populations from 436 settlements. There is explicit focus on the disadvantaged populations and the issues which were hitherto not focused on or need a very different kind of approach. There comes the approach of social innovation, developing social innovations. Another very crucial part, if I can submit humbly on behalf of AIILSG, is that these felicitations, these innovations have been felicitated with 3 global awards, one by United Nations in 2015, what is called as the RISC Award. We'll be talking very briefly about these, and the 2 were the Starring Global Health Awards. One for work with the blind girls and women, and another one for the migrant populations. So we'll come to that front. A very crucial aspect AIILSG highlights is not really that automatic, that innovations come to fore. It's not that the session will conclude within next 10 minutes, so I need to conclude well in time, and then lunch will happen. It's not really that automatic a process. It's more about very conscious institutional mechanisms being set up. So my session has 2 very important fundamental tenets. One is talking about what process we follow at AIILSG, a very scientific process that we have, and the other part is few examples that we have. Unfortunately, some of the very important illustration that will miss on, you are missing on that portion below. It's about only selected innovations that we can talk about. There are many others that AIILSG is doing across the country. For example, EQUI-T is one very fascinating innovation whereby almost it's applicable to all the places, especially in the developing world, whereby you have synergistic local fora setup that take care of city being inclusive and equitous. One very important part of AIILSG's approach is to have a dedicated institutional node to have social innovations, to develop social innovations node. We call it Social Innovations Lab, which is aptly titled as the International Center for Equity and Inclusion for Transformation. I wish to highlight this aspect because, again, otherwise, unless you have a specific node which is more like a social innovations lab, the effort can be there, but there needs to be a convergence of those efforts. This forms AIILSG's embodiment of AIILSG's sensitivity towards disadvantage, and there you have very well defined 2 performance parameters. We are accountable to the Director General and President of the organizations on 2 count. One aspect is how many innovations we have developed, and the second part is how many poor people, how many disadvantaged have really benefited out of it. This very quickly talks about the kind of process that we follow. There is a continuous journey within the team AIILSG, big team, 35 locations. We keep in consistent touch and we keep on identifying the current gaps, the disadvantaged populations hitherto unaddressed, or the issues of disadvantage which have been less focused. Once that is identified, then there is a very systematic organizational process that we go into, and then we subsequently zero on to what kind of implementation is needed. Due to paucity of time, I won't read ad verbatim, but the main point to be focused is there has to be a very well consciously designed process, and this is the AIILSG effort that we have. Next. Then this leads to innovations in new programs, new policies. For example, in programs, our realization has been the disaster vulnerability of the children and women has been less addressed. So there has to be a program dedicated to that. It takes the form of Shikshan Ranjan Kendra learning with fun centers, whereby those are established within the communities and addressing the aspects of disaster vulnerability of children, their learning attainment levels, what concerns, but very importantly, their vulnerability to exploitation, physical as well as sexual. So this is one example. Next, please. Next. And then we upscale this to AIILSG's own networks and wider associates that we have. One very crucial part that usually gets neglected is the vibrant youth energy. Actually, India has the maximum number of youth in the world. So we try to tap this youth energy into various forms. So train them as SDG advocates, give them those skills, and they work as volunteers. It helps building their career. At the same time, it helps to build that kind of social sensitivity amongst them. Apart from those programs, AIILSG has its own movement, our learning from Mahatma Gandhi, whereby those are very constructive movements. Those are AIILSG's own initiative, which are almost as low cost, no cost, but they have very big impact. For example, it's not just tribal areas, but there is also rampant malnutrition in urban areas too. There we have this, and if you leave aside cities like Mumbai, Delhi, etc., many of the small and medium towns are on that transient of urban-rural interface, which I also mentioned earlier. There are two such cities, Bhiwandi and Malegaon, which are regarded as the most precarious city by Mission Indradhanusha of Government of India. There are plenty of land is not at premium. So there we promote this kind of Mamta movement. It's AIILSG's movement called Movement Against Malnutrition with Transformative Action. Mamta, as it's known in Indian language as motherly affection. But the point is that spirit of volunteerism, that spirit of own movement of AIILSG is very crucial for us. Also, there are instances whereby many of these small and medium towns are seeing influx of many migrants, and still they have the traditional methods. For example, nomadic tribes coming to cities. You will see in lot many cities of India now, there are nomadic tribes which are selling very petty items at the signals. If you take a micro look at their life, absolutely almost they don't have any knowledge of the healthcare systems. So there is a kind of hesitation, and then many times this is called as gargote, a very typical stone used by many of the nomadic tribes women during the deliveries. So improving that access to formal systems is one part of it, and then working for their empowerment is other part of it, in which AIILSG is involved. Next. So this is about Mamta cities, and you can have it at just a cost equivalent of 2 cups of tea. So it's as simple as that. We can avoid child malnutrition. They think such a simple kind of intervention. This is another very important movement of AIILSG, movement of youth for sustainable development to ending hunger and malnutrition. I'll just go fast now. Let's move further. Next please. This is very typical way that we do. Instead of being very jargonistic and verbose, can we use, especially working with the communities, use creative media, street theatre, puppet shows, and take this to the community. In the language community, the disadvantaged populations understand. Next. But and I will end here, just 1 minute left. As I said, AIILSG has received 3 global awards. The latest one called Starring Global Award is for our work with the blind girls and women and addressing their issues of sexual exploitation, as well as making available those tools for comprehensive sexuality education. It was launched yesterday, very aptly as the women's program. This is also in sync with our theme of Men for Women's Health. It's a movement we started after the Nirbhaya case in Delhi. And I'll just demonstrate this and conclude here. And we will be putting this on the AIILSG website for June. There will be technical aspect. We are also developing a kind of doll for blind girls and women, whereby adolescent girls and women, which will be giving them comprehensive sexuality education by just touch. So there are at 4 places very typical sensors are fit, which are called as audio textile tool, and once it gets touched, a comment will close from there.
I am foster daughter of All India Institute of Local Self-Government. Khushi means happiness. With the blessings of All India Institute of Local Self-Government President Mr. Ranjit Chaman sir and Director General Mr. Rajiv Agarwal sir, on behalf of the organization, I wish to spread knowledge and happiness to the blind girls and women in the world. This innovation is felicitated with Stars in Global Health Award 2019 by Grand Challenges Canada, supported by Government of Canada. I implore you all to contribute towards making this world a better place for blind girls and women.
With these words from AIILSG's poster daughter, भारतीय भाषा में जिसे मानस कन्या कहते हैं, so I conclude it.
Thank you, Dr. Mukesh Kanaskar. With that, the presentations by the panelists conclude. I'm told we have about 5-7 minutes left. So we'll take some questions from the audience. If there are any questions, I think there are people around who have a mic in their hand. So will you please raise your hand in case you want to ask any question, and let the question be brief. Please do not make it into a statement, a specific question, in case there is a point to be addressed.
Everyone are requested to log into www.menti.com and use the code 766932 to throw any questions to the presenters. So please log into www.menti.com.
So that's an option available. We could simultaneously try that also. Tech-savvy mayors, commissioners and the like. Because that's an option they are providing. In case you want to raise questions through the app, that's also possible. Do you want to repeat once again the detail of the app? Okay. Now over to the lady please who wants to ask the question.
Good afternoon, Pratna Bora from Free Asia.
Question was from here first, please.
Sorry.
The lady here. The lady here. After that we'll come to you.
Hi, I'm Saili Magika from Observer Research Foundation. My question was to Mr. Ramachandran. In your opening remarks, sir, you mentioned about the issues of financial management and cities. And the fact is that, funds is the biggest problem. So your taxation is not possible. So what are the solutions? How are cities going to get money?
We'll take a couple of questions. There please.
Thank you. My question is to WeGO. Wanted to just understand how you integrate air quality into your smart city work that you're doing, in case you are integrating it.
Anyone else has any question? Should I take, these are the only two questions for this session? Okay, now I'll try to respond to the point about financial sustainability. Probably the platform available should provide opportunities of trying to understand how some other countries have been able to do better. I am a believer in the given state of affairs. I don't see much change happening, though we keep talking about funds, functions, and functional is going to be the third level of governance. But I think there are complications involved in that also. And probably the political leadership is mature enough to time the change which has to come about. Now you said local bodies are not able to raise resources. So then that means there can be only devolution. But the two have to go together. I refer to an issue of user charges. So within the high-powered expert committee also referred to these possibilities. So within the possibilities, the local bodies have to take a call. In the adjoining state of Maharashtra, we have Mumbai, which has enough or surplus resources. We have other local bodies, I don't know whether your city is surplus in resource or you just about managed. So there are those situations also. So I don't see an immediate solution to this unless the local bodies, through whatever activities they are undertaking now, bring about a change in the way they function, and this is rooted through the state finance commissions. Hopefully the Central Finance Commission will have something more to say on this, but state finance commissions will be an appropriate route. But probably you are also familiar with the fact that the state finance commissions always have a problem of having enough data. And also, like I always say, if you're pointing fingers at somebody, there are one or two fingers pointing to yourself. So each local body will have to look at how much has gone forward as far as raising resources at my own level is concerned. I think it has started happening in waste management and things like that. It will be of interest at some stage, may not be in the session, to understand how Panaji did this garbage-free and landfill-free arrangement, because all that involves some sort of resource management. So there are examples like this which can be shared. The second question is,
to answer your question, I can only talk from a very local perspective, and I can talk from a perspective of my city here. We have to move, like how Sir said, four fingers point to us. We always talk about devolution, how much the state government owes us and how much the central government through the finance commission will devolve to us. All that is fine and that will come. What about the reverse? What are we raising is the question. I think the key is to go from a community buying. When we started our waste management program, we wanted the community to buy in and say, okay, we will support you by segregating waste. Now we have moved from a community buying to a community paying. And today we are a city where every single resident, every single commercial institution, every single hotel pays for the waste they give us to dispose it. It was unthinkable. The political leadership of the city also thought that it would never happen. The administration also thought it would never happen. But today, consistent support from the leadership, consistent support from the administration, and a lot of hard work at ground level has changed the scenario. Every single person pays for disposal of his or her waste. I'll give you another example. We have struggled a lot in terms of charging parking fees, and slowly it has come about. Today people, maybe it is a small amount, but the city is slowly moving towards a pay parking environment pan city. So things change. Unless there is a consistent effort from bottom up and to educate, to drill people and support from the elected leadership, things do change, and Panjim has changed. It may be slow, but the change will come.
So the question directed to WeGO was how we integrate equality in our work. Is that correct? Or air quality. Air quality we support. So one of the programs that we do is called Citypreneurs, and this is a startup accelerator which we support with the UN and other partners. And we get young, innovative entrepreneurs from all over the world to submit innovative ideas for how to take care of one city's problems under a certain theme. So for example, last year's was improving indoor air quality of public transportation in Seoul. And the winner of that was, at least for our prize, there are many different prizes, was a company called WeVer that develops this little device that doesn't cost much but can be put in different places and then connected to AI, which puts forth a lot of analytics and very interesting things that can be used in many different ways. So these are the kinds of companies that we support. It's not just air quality, but it's across the board, all different solutions, and we don't have any one specific priority. The priority is what the demands are from our local government members. So if we have a lot of local government members that want, for example, a training program on air quality, then we would help find the partners who are the experts in that area, and we would work with them to organize a training program or a seminar or whatever the case may be, that we can then serve with the members would have the available, would have the access to this kind of service from us.
One more question for you.
I have a very interesting question here. How do you help build the capacity of cities based upon context rather than standardized programs? Does that question mean how we? What does that mean? So do you mean how do we target something similarly to the other question about air quality, rather than just keep it general or theoretical? The person who asked the question.
Let's keep it general. General, sir.
So since I don't understand the question, maybe you can approach me afterward, and we will allow the other speakers to go to the other questions.
Yeah. Next is for Commissioner Panaji. If any cities like to replicate your waste management practices, is there a framework for providing hand-holding support? I think was very good for you.
It depends on where you are asking the question. If it's close by and I can travel and we can travel with the team. We do a lot of hand-holding with the neighboring municipalities, and believe me, a lot of our time goes into providing tours and site visits to people who come to Panjim, and apart from enjoying the beaches, also want to see waste. So a lot of my time goes. Gino was in my office and he had to bear with a big session that I was going through with students of Terry University. They had gone around. But definitely seeing is believing in the Indian context at least. People want to see. And we facilitate that. And if you can see and if you can replicate what works for you and pick the best practices, it is worth it. If you are in Panjim, we are open. We will have a tour for you. Kindly go around, see, contact me later. We are happy to help.
Going back for lunch, so whoever raised the question, please corner him and have a dialogue and sign an MOU today itself, so that you are the first one to take this up. The next question is to any of the presenters. How can we make our
local community sustainable, handling our municipal budgetary constraints?
How can we make our
local community sustainable, handling our municipal budgetary constraints?
Constraints.
Yes, sir.
So, I think that most of the cities are struggling with budgetary constraints. This is not only in this region of the world, we see that throughout. It becomes very important, I think, for the leadership and the administration to become very creative on how to attract money. And there are several ways, I think, what here has been done in Panaji is one way of actually getting also polluters to pay for what is being done and helping in that sense the city. I think here is a lot that can be done also from an administration perspective and reaching out to corporations in industry, private sector, who are contributing to the not well-being of that community and to engage with them into in getting funding for actually restoration or recovery of what has been done. That's one piece. For that you need also regulations. It's not something that can be done just over there. The other part is, however, and this is why I was taking this example, is that you can, of course, also reaching out to your stakeholders and to those that be these citizens or private sector into a more constructive way and getting them into your projects. You can actually co-create and co-design projects in which you bring people on board, and I think where then there is an understanding and an awareness of what it actually costs to your environment, but maybe also to your health as such, that then you can integrate these into your projects as well. There are a number of very creative now green financing models where cities bring out green bonds for their own projects, for example, where you can actually go on the private market, actually integrate also here citizens into your project. Done very often, for example, when it comes to decentralized solar power or other renewable energy parts. But models are also undertaken just by citizens or groups of citizens as well, just on their own. And there we can see again in the renewable energy space a lot of new initiatives that are being brought up just by a community within a city, not necessarily with the city administration, but where there is co-creation of possibilities.
We've been told time is up, but since someone would have taken the trouble of raising the questions, can you bring up the next one? WeGO, how do you help build a... that's over. So Mr. Albert, PPP benefit in integrated parking. PPP benefit in integrated parking. After that, go to the next question. Commissioner Panaji, finish it. Why does it keep shifting?
No, it is done, sir. The questions are done.
So this is the last question.
My question is to Mr. Albert. PPP benefit in integrated parking.
Like when we do the project.
So some examples of PPPs used to
for the integrated parking.
Develop.
Yes.
Okay, I see. One of them is with Kampala. That was the one that I talked about that we just wrapped up this year with the smart parking system. If you go to Kampala, you will notice that a lot of their parking lots are dirt roads. They don't have any lines, they don't have any infrastructure, they don't even have the funds to build a normal parking lot. So then what do? You have to look at technology. Find the interesting technology, ways in which technology can solve these kind of problems. And so what we did, besides obviously funding this feasibility study and pilot project, we also found a company that develops an app that will use a CCTV that you establish. So we did a pilot project in front of the City Hall. They put the CCTV on the roof of the building, and it maps out the whole dirt lot in front of the City Hall. And it is able to identify where cars are parked, how long they've been there, whether they're parked correctly, and so on and so forth. And this is all then connected to a system which can then be further developed for things like automated payment and things like that. So this is one of the examples for that. I hope that answers the question.
Well, thank you, panelists, and thank you, the audience, for your patience. So over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramachandran. A round of applause for the chair and panelists of this session on sustainable cities. We quickly round up by giving them mementos as a token of our love and affection. And at the outset, would like to request Sanyukta Bhatia, Mayor of Lucknow, to come forward and present a memento to the chair of this session, Dr. M. Ramachandran, former Secretary Government of India. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Mayor of Lucknow. Come forward to hand over that memento. Requesting Sakti Singh, Mayor of Gangtok, to hand over memento to Gino, Secretary General ICLEI. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Requesting Nutan Rathore, Mayor of Firozabad, to hand over memento to Mr. Sanjit Rodrigues, the Commissioner of the City of Panaji. Requesting Asa Sarma, Mayor of Ghaziabad, to kindly hand over memento to Kalanidhi Devkota, Executive Director, MuAN, Nepal. Requesting the Mayor of Kanpur to kindly come forward and hand over memento to Albert Graves, Program Director from WeGO. Requesting Vikas Kanumbu from the World Bank to kindly do the honors and present a memento to Dr. Mukesh Kanaskar, Deputy Director General, All India Institute of Global Self-Government. And we also have the pleasure of having amongst us Mr. Jagdish Kirmani, the member of the National Commission for Safai Karmcharis, Government of India, requesting Mr. Jagdish to kindly come on stage, and we would like to present him with a memento. And for that I would request our Director General, Mr. Rajiv Agarwal, to do the honors. And kindly would like to request the panelists to be ready for a group photograph. PG Saab, Madam Hansa, can you join in please? Alright, a quick group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the panelists of technical session 1 on sustainable cities. And a lovely picture here. Come on, put your hands together once again. And ladies and gentlemen, we now break for lunch, which is sponsored by the Corporation of the